Lady slaps a black gateman, but did not know he owned the place. The Golden Oaks estate stood as a testament to luxury and exclusivity in the heart of Millbrook City. Its wrought iron gates, adorned with intricate gold leaf designs, marked the boundary between the ordinary world and a realm of manicured lawns, palatial homes, and carefully curated lives. On this particular autumn afternoon, the gates gleamed under the warm sunlight, unaware they would soon become the stage for a drama that would shake the community to its core. Lady Agatha Whitmore sat rigidly in the back of her sleek black Bentley, her gloved hands folded primly in her lap. At 65, she still cut an impressive figure, her silver hair coiffed to perfection, her attire speaking volumes of wealth and taste. Yet, behind her composed exterior, a storm of emotions brewed. 15 years, she muttered to herself, her voice barely audible over the purr of the engine. 15 years in this community, and now they dared to change things without so much as a by your leave. Her driver, a young man named Thomas who had been with the Whitmore household for barely a year, glanced nervously at her through the rearview mirror. "I'm sure it's just a temporary measure, Lady Whitmore," he offered, hoping to soothe her evident irritation. Agatha's steel-gray eyes flashed. "Temporary or not, it's simply not done. The Whitmores have been pillars of this community since its inception. Your predecessor would have known better than to question such matters." Thomas swallowed hard and focused on the road ahead, silently chastising himself for speaking out of turn. As they approached the gates of Golden Oaks, he could feel the tension radiating from the back seat. The Bentley came to a smooth stop before the guard booth, where once stood a familiar face, old Mr. Jameson, who had manned the gates for as long as anyone could remember. There was now a stranger. A young man, perhaps in his mid-40s, sat in the booth, his dark skin a stark contrast to the crisp white uniform of Golden Oaks security. Lady Agatha's eyes narrowed. Change was not something she welcomed, especially not in her sanctuary. Golden Oaks had been her haven since she'd married Robert Whitmore all those years ago. It was where she'd built her life, raised her children, and now, in her widowhood, it was the last bastion of the world she knew and understood. The security guard stepped out of the booth, a welcoming smile on his face as he approached the car. Thomas lowered the window, ready to present Lady Whitmore's credentials as usual. "Good afternoon," the guard said pleasantly. "Welcome to Golden Oaks Estates. May I see your identification, please?" Before Thomas could respond, Lady Agatha's voice cut through the air like a whip. "Identification? I've lived here for 15 years. I'm Lady Agatha Whitmore." "Surely you jest." The guard's smile didn't waver, but a flicker of something, perhaps amusement, perhaps resignation, passed through his eyes. "I apologize, ma'am, but it's our new policy to check all IDs, regardless of residency status, for everyone's safety." Agatha felt her cheeks flush with indignation. She leaned forward, her voice low and dangerous. "Young man, do you have any idea who I am? Who the Whitmores are to this community?" "I understand your frustration, ma'am," the guard replied calmly, "but I'm afraid I have to insist. It's my job to ensure the security of all our residents." Something in his tone, was it condescension or worse, pity, made Agatha's blood boil. In that moment, all the frustrations of the past year, the loneliness since Robert's passing, the subtle shifts in how people treated her, the creeping feeling that the world was leaving her behind, crystallized into a white-hot rage. Without thinking, she flung open the car door and stepped out, drawing herself up to her full height. "Now you listen here," she began, her voice shaking with anger. The guard took a step back, his hands raised in a placating gesture. "Ma'am, please, there's no need for..." Agatha was beyond reason. In a move that would shock even herself in retrospect, she raised her hand and slapped the guard across the face, the sharp crack echoing in the suddenly silent air. Time seemed to stand still. Thomas sat frozen in the driver's seat, his mouth agape. The guard's head was turned to the side, a red mark blooming on his cheek. And Lady Agatha stood there, her hand still raised, as the magnitude of what she'd done slowly dawned on her. It was at that precise moment that another car pulled up behind the Bentley. The door opened, and out stepped Elizabeth Chen, the president of the Golden Oaks Community Association. Her eyes widened as she took in the scene before her. "Agatha? Marcus? What on earth is going on here?" Elizabeth's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Agatha turned, relief flooding her features at the sight of a friendly face. "Elizabeth, thank goodness. This person refuses to let me in without identification, as if I were some common intruder." Elizabeth's gaze shifted between Agatha and the guard, her expression a mixture of confusion and growing concern. "Agatha," she said slowly, "don't you know who this is?" "Should I?" Agatha sniffed, some of her earlier indignation returning. The guard, Marcus, had recovered his composure. Stood straight, meeting Agatha's gaze with a calm dignity that made her suddenly uncomfortable. Elizabeth took a deep breath. "Agatha, this is Marcus Johnson. He's not just a security guard. He's the new owner of Golden Oaks Estates." The world seemed to tilt on its axis as Agatha processed this information. Marcus Johnson. The name was vaguely familiar. Hadn't there been some excitement at the last community meeting about a new investor? But surely they hadn't meant. That's impossible," Agatha stammered, her certainty crumbling around her. Marcus finally spoke, his voice level and controlled. "Not impossible, Lady Whitmore. Just unexpected. I imagine. I purchased Golden Oaks 3 months ago. I've been personally overseeing the implementation of new security measures to ensure the safety and privacy of all our residents." Agatha felt the blood drain from her face as the full impact of her actions hit her. She had just assaulted the owner of Golden Oaks, a man who, by the looks of things, was younger than her own children, and a far cry from the old money circles she was accustomed to. As if from a great distance, she heard Elizabeth speaking urgently. "Marcus, I am so sorry. I'm sure this is all just a misunderstanding. Agatha has been under a lot of stress since Robert passed, and—" "That's no excuse," Marcus interrupted, his tone firm but not unkind. He turned to Agatha, found herself unable to meet his eyes. "Lady Whitmore, I understand that change can be difficult, but I hope you understand that what happened here today is completely unacceptable. We'll need to have a serious discussion about this incident and its consequences." Agatha nodded mutely, feeling every one of her 65 years weighing heavily upon her. As she allowed Elizabeth to guide her back to her car, she caught a glimpse of her reflection in the Bentley's polished surface. The woman staring back at her seemed suddenly old, small, and very, very foolish. The gates of Golden Oaks slowly swung open, but Agatha Whitmore had never felt less at home. As the Bentley glided through the streets of Golden Oaks, Lady Agatha Whitmore sat in stunned silence. The manicured lawns and stately homes that had once filled her with pride now seemed to mock her. Each turn of the wheel brought a new wave of shame and regret washing over her. Thomas, sensing the delicate nature of the situation, drove in silence, occasionally glancing in the rearview mirror at his employer. He had only been working for Lady Whitmore for a short time, but he had never seen her so shaken. Agatha's mind raced, replaying the incident at the gates over and over. How had she let herself lose control like that? She, Agatha Whitmore, née Carrington, who'd been the very picture of poise and refinement for as long as she could remember. As the car pulled up to Whitmore Manor, Agatha found herself transported back in time. She remembered the day Robert had first brought her here, blushing bride of 25, ready to take on the world by his side. Robert Whitmore had been everything she had ever dreamed of. Handsome, wealthy, and from one of the oldest families in Millbrook City. Life with Robert had been a whirlwind of charity galas, board meetings, and social engagement. He had shielded her from the harsher realities of the world, handling all the family's business affairs, while Agatha focused on maintaining their social standing. It had been a comfortable arrangement, one that had lasted for 4 decades until Robert's sudden passing a year ago. Now, as Thomas opened the car door for her, Agatha felt the weight of her widowhood more acutely than ever. She stepped out, her legs unsteady, and made her way into the house that suddenly felt far too large and empty. "Shall I bring you some tea, Lady Whitmore?" Thomas asked, his voice gentle. Agatha nodded absently, making her way to the sitting room. As she sank into her favorite armchair, her eyes fell on a photograph of Robert on the mantelpiece. His kind eyes seemed to look right through her, and for the first time since his passing, Agatha felt a twinge of anger towards her late husband. "Oh, Robert," he whispered, "you never prepared me for this. How am I supposed to navigate this world without you?" Meanwhile, across Golden Oaks, Marcus Johnson was dealing with his own tumultuous emotions. He sat in his home office, an ice pack pressed to his cheek, as his wife Sarah paced the room. "I can't believe she had the audacity to lay hands on you." Sarah fumed, her lawyer's instincts kicking in. "We should press charges, Marcus. This is assault, plain and simple." Marcus sighed, lowering the ice pack. "And what would that accomplish, Sarah, besides making an already tense situation worse?" Sarah stopped pacing and turned to face her husband. "It would show that you won't be pushed around. That's what. You worked too hard to get here to let some relic of a bygone era treat you like this." A small smile played on Marcus's lips despite the circumstance. It was this fire, this passion for justice that had first drawn him to Sarah all those years ago when they were both struggling students at law school. "I appreciate your righteous anger on my behalf, love," he said, standing up and crossing the room to take her hands in his. "But I think this situation calls for a different approach." Sarah's expression softened as she looked up at her husband. At 45, Marcus Johnson cut an impressive figure. Years of hard work had etched lines of character into his face, and his eyes held a wisdom beyond his years. She knew the story of his rise intimately, from the child of working-class parents to a self-made millionaire, and now the owner of one of the most prestigious communities in the city. "You're too forgiving sometimes, you know that," she said, but there was no real reproach in her voice. Marcus chuckled. "It's not about forgiveness, Sarah. It's about understanding. Lady Whitmore's actions were inexcusable, yes, but they come from a place of fear. Fear of change, fear of losing status, fear of a world that's moving on without her." He moved to the window, looking out over the community he now owned. "When I bought Golden Oaks, I knew there would be challenges. Change is never easy, especially for those who have benefited from the status quo for so long. But I believe we have an opportunity here, not just to punish, but to educate and grow." Sarah joined him at the window, leaning her head on his shoulder. "And that's why you insisted on taking shifts at the gate yourself," she said, understanding dawning in her eyes. Marcus nodded. "I wanted to see firsthand how the residents would react to the changes, to understand their concerns, their fears. I never expected it to get physical, but..." He trailed off, his mind going back to the moment of the slap. He had seen the shock in Lady Whitmore's eyes immediately after, the realization of what she had done. And beneath that shock, he had glimpsed something else, profound, almost childlike fear. "So what's your plan?" Sarah asked, knowing her husband well enough to know he already had one forming. Marcus turned to her, a determined glint in his eye. "We're going to bridge this divide. Not with lawsuits or public shaming, but with understanding and education. It won't be easy, and it certainly won't happen overnight, but I believe it's necessary, not just for Lady Whitmore, for the entire community." As the Johnsons discussed their next steps across Golden Oaks, Elizabeth Chen was dealing with a crisis of her own. As president of the Community Association, she had always prided herself on her ability to maintain harmony among the diverse residents of Golden Oak. But the incident at the gate threatened to upset the delicate balance she had worked so hard to achieve. Elizabeth sat at her desk, her usually tidy hair coming loose from its bun as she made call after call. She had already spoken with several board members, trying to get ahead of the inevitable gossip and speculation. Now she found herself dialing a number she had hoped she wouldn't need to use. After several rings, a gruff voice answered. "Whitmore residence." "Amos? This is Elizabeth Chen. I need to speak with Lady Whitmore, please. It's urgent." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "I'm afraid Lady Whitmore is indisposed at the moment, Mrs. Chen. Perhaps I could take a message?" Elizabeth closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. "Thomas, I know what happened at the gate today. It's imperative that I speak with Lady Whitmore. Situation is delicate, to say the least." Another pause, longer this time. Then, "One moment, please, Mrs. Chen." As she waited, Elizabeth's mind raced. She had known Agatha Whitmore for over a decade, had considered her a friend despite their differences in age and background. She had watched as Agatha struggled to find her footing after Robert's death, tried to gently encourage her to engage more with the changing community. But nothing had prepared her for the scene she had witnessed at the gates. "Elizabeth?" Agatha's voice came through the line, small and uncertain. "Agatha, thank goodness," Elizabeth said, relief evident in her tone. "We need to talk about what happened today." I don't know what came over me," Agatha said, her voice trembling. I would never. "I know, Agatha," Elizabeth said gently, "but the fact remains that it did happen, and now we need to deal with the consequence." There was a muffled sound on the other end of the line that might have been a sob. "What am I going to do, Elizabeth? I've ruined everything, haven't I?" Elizabeth's heart went out to her friend, even as she recognized the gravity of the situation. "It's not ruined, Agatha, but it is serious. Mr. Johnson, Marcus, he's the owner of Golden Oaks. He's also one of the most influential businessmen in the city. His company has been at the forefront of urban renewal projects, diversity initiatives. Press has called him a visionary for the modern age." "Oh God," Agatha moaned. "I had no idea. I just saw. A black man in a uniform," Elizabeth finished, her tone gentle but firm. "Agatha, we need to address this. Not just the incident itself, but the underlying assumptions that led to it." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. When Agatha spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. "What do you suggest?" Elizabeth took a deep breath. "I think we need to arrange a meeting. You, me, and Mr. Rank Johnson. We need to clear the air to find a way forward. This isn't just about you and him anymore, Agatha. The entire community is going to be watching how this plays out." "Do you think he'll agree to meet?" Agatha asked, a note of hope creeping into her voice. "I believe he will," Elizabeth said, thinking of the calm dignity Marcus had displayed even in the face of Agatha's assault. "Mr. Johnson doesn't strike me as the type to hold grudges. But Agatha, you need to be prepared. This meeting won't be easy. You'll need to confront some hard truths about yourself and your attitude." Another long pause. Then, "I understand. When can you arrange it?" As Elizabeth hung up the phone, she felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be challenging, but at least they were taking the first steps. She picked up her phone again, this time to call Marcus Johnson. As she dialed, she sent up a silent prayer that this crisis could become an opportunity. A chance for growth, understanding, and real change in Golden Oaks. Little did she know that the meeting she was about to arrange would set in motion a series of events that would transform not just Agatha Whitmore and Marcus Johnson, but the entire Golden Oaks community. Golden Oaks Community Center stood at the heart of the estate, its modern architecture in stark contrast to the traditional mansions surrounding it. On this crisp morning, it served as neutral ground for a meeting that would determine the future of the community. Lady Agatha Whitmore arrived first, her normally confident stride reduced to hesitant steps. She had agonized over what to wear, finally settling on a conservative navy suit that had always made her feel powerful. Today, however, it felt like armor against an unseen threat. Elizabeth Chen greeted her at the door, her warm smile a balm to Agatha's frayed nerve. "You're doing the right thing, Agatha," she said softly, guiding her friend into the building. They had barely settled into the conference room when Marcus Johnson arrived. Agatha's breath caught in her throat as she saw him. Gone was the security uniform. In its place was a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that spoke of wealth and influence. His presence filled the room, and Agatha found herself shrinking back in her chair. "Good morning, ladies," Marcus said, his voice calm and measured. He took a seat across from Agatha, with Elizabeth positioned between them at the head of the table. An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. Agatha's eyes darted between Marcus and Elizabeth, her hands fidgeting in her lap. It was Elizabeth who finally broke the tension. "Thank you both for agreeing to this meeting," she began. "I think we all understand the gravity of the situation and the need for a resolution that benefits not just the two of you, but our entire community." Marcus nodded, his expression neutral. "I agree. Lady Whitmore, would you like to start?" Agatha swallowed hard, her carefully prepared speech deserting her in the face of Marcus's dignified composure. I want to apologize," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "My behavior was inexcusable. I don't know what came over me." Marcus leaned forward slightly. "With all due respect, Lady Whitmore, I think you do know, and I think it's important that we address it directly." Agatha felt heat rising in her cheeks. "I don't know what you mean," she said stiffly. I think you do, Marcus pressed gently. You saw a black man in a uniform and made assumptions. Assumptions about who I was, what I was capable of, and what rights I had. Those assumptions led to actions that, as you said, were inexcusable. The bluntness of his words hit Agatha like a physical blow. She opened her mouth to protest, to defend herself, but found she couldn't form the words, because deep down she knew he was right. Agatha, Elizabeth interjected softly, this is a chance for growth, understanding, but it has to start with honesty. Tears welled up in Agatha's eyes. You're right, whispered. Both of you. I've lived in a bubble for so long. When Robert was alive, he handled everything. He shielded me from the changing world. And when he died, I think I just retreated further. Marcus's expression softened slightly. Change can be frightening, he acknowledged, especially when it challenges everything we've known. But Lady Whitmore, the world is changing, whether we like it or not. The question is, are we going to change with it or be left behind? Agatha looked up, meeting Marcus's eyes for the first time. I don't know how, she admitted, her voice small. A small smile played on Marcus's lips. That's where I come in, Dad. Lady Whitmore, I didn't buy Golden Oaks just as an investment. I bought it because I believe in the power of diverse communities. I believe that when people from different backgrounds come together, learn from each other, we all become better for it. He leaned back in his chair, posture relaxing slightly. I grew up in a neighborhood where nobody looked like me. I know what it's like to feel like an outsider, to have people make assumptions about you based on nothing but the color of your skin. But I also know the joy of breaking down those barriers, forming connections across divides. Agatha listened, transfixed. This was not the angry confrontation she had feared, nor the cold business transaction she had expected. This was a teaching moment. What do you propose? She asked, a hint of her old strength returning to her voice. Marcus smiled fully now. I propose a community outreach program, a series of events designed to bring all of Golden Oaks together, dinners, workshops, volunteer opportunities, and I'd like you to help organize them, Lady Whitmore. Agatha's eyes widened in surprise. Me? But why? Because you have influence in this community, Marcus explained. People respect you. They see you embracing change, learning and growing. It will encourage others to do the same. Elizabeth nodded enthusiastically. It's a wonderful idea. Agatha, you've always had a talent for bringing people together. This could be a chance to use that talent for real, meaningful change. Agatha sat back, mind whirling. This was so far from what she had expected. She had come here prepared for punishment, for exile even. Instead, she was being offered a chance at redemption, at a new purpose. I don't know what to say, she stammered. Marcus leaned forward, his eyes kind but determined. Say yes, Lady Whitmore. Say you're willing to learn, to grow, to help make Golden Oaks a true community for all its residents. Agatha looked from Marcus to Elizabeth, and back again. She thought of Robert, of the world he had tried to preserve for her. And then she thought of the world outside Golden Oaks, the world her grandchildren were growing up in. Yes, she said finally, her voice stronger now. Yes, I'll do it. The relief in the room was palpable. Elizabeth beamed, while Marcus nodded approvingly. Excellent, he said. We'll start planning right away. But Lady Whitmore, I want you to understand, this won't be easy. You'll face resistance, not just from others, but from within yourself. Old habits die hard. Agatha straightened in her chair, a glimmer of her old fire returning. I understand, Mr. Johnson, and I'm ready for the challenge. As they left the community center an hour later, plans in place for the first outreach event, Agatha felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had come here expecting an ending, but instead had found a new beginning. The news of the meeting spread quickly through Golden Oaks. By nightfall, the community was abuzz with speculation and gossip. Some praised Marcus's compassion, while others muttered that he was being too lenient. Some applauded Agatha's willingness to change, while others scoffed that it was too little, too late. In her manner, Agatha sat in her study, poring over community demographics and event planning guides. For the first time in years, she felt truly alive, truly purposeful. Across the estate, Marcus and Sarah Johnson sat on their patio, discussing the day's events. You're taking a risk, you know, Sarah said, sipping her wine. If this backfires, it could damage your reputation, not just here, but in the broader business community. Marcus nodded, his eyes on the sunset painting the sky in brilliant hues. I know, but sometimes the biggest risks bring the greatest rewards. I truly believe we have a chance here to create something special, something that could serve as a model for communities everywhere. Sarah reached out, taking his hand. And that's why I love you, he said softly. Your ability to see the best in people, even when they're at their worst. As night fell over Golden Oaks, a sense of anticipation hung in the air. Change was coming, ready or not. For Lady Agatha Whitmore, it was the dawn of a new chapter in her life. For Marcus Johnson, it was a step towards realizing his vision for a truly inclusive community. And for Golden Oaks as a whole, it was the beginning of a journey that would challenge perceptions, break down barriers, ultimately bring people together in ways they never imagined possible. Little did they know, the true test of their resolve and the strength of their newfound alliance was just around the corner. The weeks following the meeting at the community center were a whirlwind of activity for Lady Agatha Whitmore. Her days, once filled with idle gossip and charity luncheons, were now consumed with planning meetings, research, and countless phone calls. First community outreach event was scheduled for the end of the month, and Agatha was determined to make it a success. One crisp autumn morning, Agatha found herself standing in front of her full-length mirror, scrutinizing her reflection. Gone was the perfectly coiffed society matron of old. In her place stood a woman with a purposeful gleam in her eye, dressed in a smart but comfortable pantsuit. She was on her way to meet with Marcus Johnson to finalize the details of their first event. As Thomas drove her to the Johnson residence, Agatha couldn't help but marvel at how much her life had changed in such a short time. The Gates incident, as it had come to be known in her mind, had been a wake-up call. It had forced her to confront uncomfortable truths about herself and the world around her. The car pulled up to a modern, glass-fronted house that stood in stark contrast to the traditional mansions of Golden Oaks. Agatha took a deep breath, steeling herself before stepping out of the car. Sarah Johnson answered the door, her welcoming smile tinged with a hint of wariness. Lady Whitmore, please come in. Marcus is in his study. As Agatha followed Sarah through the house, she couldn't help but admire the tasteful decor that seamlessly blended modern aesthetics with traditional African art. It was a far cry from her own home, filled with antiques and family heirlooms. Marcus rose from his desk as they entered, extending his hand in greeting. Lady Whitmore, thank you for coming. Shall we get started? For the next 2 hours, they pored over plans for the upcoming Golden Oaks Unity Dinner. The event was designed to bring together residents from all walks of life, featuring a diverse menu, cultural performances, and opportunities for meaningful conversation. I've been thinking, Agatha said hesitantly, perhaps we could include a speech or presentation about the history of segregation in housing community. Many of our older residents, myself included, might benefit from understanding the historical context of our current situation. Marcus looked up, pleasantly surprised. That's an excellent idea, Lady Whitmore. I know just the person who could give such a presentation. Dr. Jamal Washington from the university's sociology department. He's done extensive research on the subject. As they continued to work, Agatha found herself growing more comfortable in Marcus's presence. His intelligence, compassion, and vision for the community were truly impressive. She felt a twinge of shame as she remembered her initial prejudices. However, not everyone in Golden Oaks was as open to change. As word of the Unity Dinner spread, so did the murmurs of discontent. Elizabeth Chen's phone had been ringing off the hook with complaints and concerns from residents. She sat in her home office, massaging her temples as she listened to yet another tirade. "This is preposterous, Elizabeth," came the shrill voice of Beatrice Hildebrand, one of the community's longest-standing residents. "A Unity Dinner? What's next? Letting the help eat at our tables? This Johnson fellow is going to destroy everything that makes Golden Oaks special." Elizabeth took a deep breath, summoning her patience. "Beatrice, I understand this is a big change, but I truly believe it's for the best. Golden Oaks has always prided itself on being forward-thinking. This is our chance to lead by example. Forward-thinking doesn't mean abandoning our values." Beatrice sniffed. Mark my words, this will not end well." As she hung up the phone, Elizabeth couldn't shake a feeling of unease. She knew change wouldn't be easy, but the level of resistance was concerning. She made a mental note to discuss increased security measures with Marcus, just in case. Meanwhile, across town, Marcus was facing challenges of his own. He sat in a sleek downtown office, facing the stern visage of Harold Blackstone, one of his major investors. "I'm concerned, Johnson," Blackstone said, voice gruff. "This diversity push of yours in Golden Oaks, it's making waves, and not all of them are good. Some of our other investors are getting nervous." Marcus leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "Harold, I understand their concerns, but I stand by my decision. Golden Oaks has the potential to be a model for inclusive, diverse communities. That's not just good ethics, it's good business." Blackstone's frown deepened. "Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're risking a stable, profitable investment on some pie-in-the-sky social experiment." "It's not an experiment," Marcus countered. "The future. Demographics are changing. In 10, 20 years, communities that haven't adapted will be left behind. We're ahead of the curve." The meeting ended on a tense note, with Blackstone warning Marcus to tread carefully. As Marcus drove home, he couldn't shake a feeling of frustration. He had known there would be resistance. He hadn't anticipated it coming from so many directions at once. As the day of the Unity dinner approached, tensions in Golden Oaks reached a boiling point. Agatha found herself caught in the middle, trying to mediate between her old friends who resisted change and her new commitment to Marcus's vision. One afternoon, she sat in her garden with her oldest friend in the community, Victoria Fairfax. Victoria picked at her scone, her face pinched with disapproval. "Really, Agatha," she said, "I don't understand what's gotten into you. This crusade of yours, it's not like you at all." Agatha set down her teacup, choosing her words carefully. "It's not a crusade, Victoria. It's growth. I've realized that the world is changing and we need to change with it." Victoria scoffed. "Change? My dear, we've spent our lives cultivating a certain standard of living, of society, and now you want to throw it all away for what? To appease some upstart who doesn't understand our ways?" "Marcus Johnson is not an upstart," Agatha said, feeling a surge of defensiveness. "He's a successful businessman with a vision for our community. And our ways, as you put it, are not above scrutiny or improvement." Victoria stood abruptly, face flushed with anger. "I see he's thoroughly brainwashed you. Well, don't come crying to me when this all blows up in your face. Some of us still remember what Golden Oaks is supposed to stand for." As Victoria stormed off, Agatha felt a mix of sadness and determination. She was losing friends, yes, but she was also gaining a new perspective on the world. The question was, would it be worth the cost? The night before the Unity dinner, Agatha found herself unable to sleep. She paced the floors of Whitmore Manor, her mind racing with last-minute details and worries. What if no one showed up? What if there was a confrontation? What if she made a fool of herself? In a moment of weakness, she found herself in Robert's old study, a place she had avoided since his death. She ran her fingers over his desk, remembering how he would sit there, confidently making decisions that would shape their lives and the community. "Oh, Robert," she whispered to the empty room. "What would you think of all this? Would you understand? Would you be proud of me or ashamed?" As the first light of dawn crept through the windows, Agatha made a decision. She couldn't live in the shadow of the past any longer. Whatever happened at the dinner, whatever challenges lay ahead, she would face them head-on. The day of the Unity dinner dawned bright and clear. The Golden Oaks Community Center had been transformed. Tables were set with linens in a vibrant array of colors, each centerpiece featuring flowers and artifacts representing different cultures. The walls were adorned with artwork from local artists of diverse backgrounds. Agatha arrived early, her heart pounding as she oversaw the final preparations. She wore a beautiful sari, a gift from an Indian family in the community, paired with her grandmother's pearls, a blend of old and new that felt symbolic of the changes taking place. Marcus arrived soon after, looking dapper in a suit accented with a vibrant kente cloth bow tie. His face broke into a wide smile as he saw the transformed space. "Lady Whitmore," he said, genuine admiration in his voice. "This is incredible. You've outdone yourself." Agatha felt a flush of pride. Thank you, Mr. Johnson, though I can't take all the credit. So many people in the community stepped up to help. It's been eye-opening. As they stood surveying the room, Elizabeth Chen hurried in, her face tight with worry. We may have a problem, she said in a low voice. There's a group gathering outside. They're protesting the dinner. Marcus's face hardened. How many? About 24, Elizabeth replied. Mostly older residents, but they're loud, and they've got signs. Agatha felt a moment of panic. This was exactly what she had feared. But as she looked at Marcus's determined face, she felt a surge of resolve. Let me talk to them, she said, surprising herself as much as the others. Marcus looked at her searchingly. Are you sure? You don't have to do this. Agatha squared her shoulders. Yes, I do. Many of them are my friends. Beware. If anyone can get through to them, it's me. As she walked towards the entrance, flanked by Marcus and Elizabeth, Agatha could hear the chants growing louder. Keep Golden Oaks golden. Preserve our community. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the doors and stepped out into the sunlight, ready to face whatever came next. The future of Golden Oaks hung in the balance, and Lady Agatha Whitmore was determined to be on the right side of history. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the manicured lawn of the Golden Oaks Community Center as Lady Agatha Whitmore stepped outside. Chants of the protesters faltered for a moment as they recognized her, confusion evident on many faces. Agatha's heart raced, but she kept her expression calm and dignified. She raised her hands, gesturing for quiet, and to her surprise, the crowd fell silent. My friends, she began, her voice carrying across the lawn, I've known many of you for years. We've shared joys and sorrows, celebrated milestones, and weathered storms together. Today, I'm asking you to listen to me, not as Lady Whitmore, but as Agatha, your neighbor and friend. She paused, looking at the faces before her. Some were angry, others confused, and a few seemed genuinely curious. I know you're afraid, she continued. Change is frightening. It challenges everything we've known and held dear. I understand that fear because I felt it too. But I've learned something important in these past weeks. Fear doesn't have to control us. We can choose to grow, to learn, to embrace a world that's bigger and more diverse than we ever imagined. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Agatha saw Victoria Fairfax near the front, her face a mask of disapproval. But she also saw others like old Mr. Jameson, former security guard, nodding thoughtfully. Golden Oaks has always prided itself on being a community of excellence, Agatha said, her voice growing stronger. But true excellence isn't about exclusion. It's about bringing out the best in everyone, about creating a place where all people can thrive, regardless of their background. It gestured towards Marcus, who stood quietly behind her. Mr. Johnson isn't here to destroy our community. He's here to help it evolve, to ensure that Golden Oaks remains relevant and vibrant for generations to come. The dinner we're holding tonight isn't a threat to our way of life. It's a celebration of what we can become when we open our hearts and minds. Victoria stepped forward, her voice sharp. And what about our values, Agatha? Our traditions? Are we supposed to just throw those away? Agatha met her old friend's gaze steadily. Our core values, kindness, respect, excellence, those don't change, Victoria. If anything, this is a chance to apply those values more broadly, to extend the same courtesies to others that we've always expected for ourselves. She turned, addressing the whole group again. I'm not asking you to abandon who you are. I'm inviting you to expand your understanding of who we can be together. The doors to this dinner are open to all of you. Come inside, meet your neighbors, really meet them, perhaps for the first time. Share a meal, share stories, you might be surprised at what you discover. For a long moment, silence reigned. Then, slowly, Mr. Jameson stepped forward. I've lived in Golden Oaks for 40 years, he said, his voice gravelly with age. Seen a lot of changes, some good, some bad. But Lady Whitmore's right, we can't stand still while the world moves on. I, for one, would like to see what this new Golden Oaks might look like. He walked past Agatha, giving her a nod as he entered the community center. Gradually, others followed. Some still looked uncertain, others curious. Victoria and a few others remained, their expressions stormy, but the bulk of the protest had dissipated. Agatha felt a hand on her shoulder and turned to see Marcus, his eyes shining with admiration. That was incredible, Lady Whitmore, he said softly. truly inspiring. She felt a flush of pride, tempered with humility. "It's a start," she replied. "We still have a long way to go." As they turned to enter the building, Victoria called out, her voice thick with emotion. "You'll regret this, Agatha. Mark my words." Agatha paused, looking back at her old friend. "The only thing I'd regret, Victoria, is not trying to make a difference when I had the chance. The invitation stands, if you change your mind." Inside, the Unity dinner was getting underway. The atmosphere was tentative at first, with people clustering in familiar groups. But as the evening progressed, helped along by the delicious aromas of diverse cuisines and the gentle encouragement of Agatha and Marcus, barriers began to break down. Agatha found herself at a table with Mr. Jameson, a young Indian couple who had recently moved in, and Sarah Johnson. The conversation flowed surprisingly easily, touching on everything from gardening tips to favorite books. "I must admit," Mr. Jameson said, his eyes twinkling, "I never thought I'd enjoy Korean barbecue this much. My taste buds are having quite the adventure tonight." Across the room, Marcus was deep in conversation with Dr. Jamal Washington and several other residents. Planned presentation on housing segregation had evolved into a lively, if sometimes uncomfortable, discussion about the history of Golden Oaks and communities like it. "It's not about assigning blame," Dr. Washington was saying, his voice carrying clearly in a lull of conversation. "It's about understanding our history so we can make informed choices about our future. Golden Oaks has an opportunity to be a leader in community integration, to show that diversity and excellence aren't mutually exclusive, they're mutually reinforcing." As the evening wore on, Agatha found herself moving from table to table, facilitating introductions, easing tensions, and gently encouraging people to step out of their comfort zones. She was exhausted but exhilarated. This, she realized, was what true community felt like. Near the end of the night, Marcus clinked his glass, calling for attention. The room fell silent as he stood. "I want to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight," he began. "I know for some of you, walking through those doors was an act of courage. Change isn't easy, but you've all shown a willingness to try, to listen, to engage. That's the first step towards building the kind of community we all want to live in." He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. "Golden Oaks has a proud history, and I believe it can have an even prouder future. Future where excellence is defined, not by exclusivity, but by how we lift each other up, where diversity is seen not as a threat, but as a strength. To that end," he continued, "I'm announcing the creation of the Golden Oaks Community Foundation. This foundation will fund scholarships for deserving students from all backgrounds, support local businesses, and invest in programs that bring our community together. And I'm honored to announce that Lady Agatha Whitmore has agreed to serve as the foundation's first chairperson." A ripple of surprise went through the room. Agatha felt all eyes turn to her, and for a moment she was overwhelmed. But as she stood to join Marcus, she felt a sense of purpose, stronger than any she'd known before. "Thank you, Mr. Johnson," she said, her voice clear and strong. "I'm deeply honored by this opportunity. My neighbors, my friends, new and old, I pledge to work tirelessly to make Golden Oaks a community we can all be proud of. Community that honors its past while embracing its future. Community where everyone, regardless of their background, can feel at home." The applause that followed was tentative at first, then grew stronger. Agatha saw nods of approval, smiles of encouragement, and yes, some frowns of disapproval. But the tide was turning. She could feel it. As the evening wound down and guests began to leave, Agatha found herself standing with Marcus and Elizabeth near the entrance, bidding people goodbye. The atmosphere was lighter now, with promises to do this again soon and exchanges of phone numbers between new acquaintances. Just as they were about to close the doors, a familiar figure appeared. Victoria Fairfax stood there, looking uncomfortable but determined. I missed the dinner," she said stiffly. "But I wondered if perhaps there might be some dessert left?" Agatha felt a surge of emotion. She stepped forward, taking her old friend's hands in hers. "There's always room for one more, Victoria. Always." As they walked back into the community center together, Agatha caught Marcus's eye, gave her a subtle nod of approval and respect. In that moment, Agatha knew that while the road ahead might be challenging, it was also full of promise. The Unity dinner had been more than just a meal. It was the beginning of a new chapter for Golden Oaks. There would be obstacles to overcome, prejudices to dismantle, and wounds to heal. But they had taken the first step. As the last of the guests left and the cleanup began, Agatha found herself standing alone in the center of the room. She thought of Robert, of the life they had built here, and for the first time since his passing, she didn't feel lost. She felt like she was exactly where she needed to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. Golden Oaks was changing, and so was she. And together, they were moving towards a future brighter than any she could have imagined. The summer sun shone brightly on Golden Oaks as Lady Agatha Whitmore made her way through the community garden. It was hard to believe that a year had passed since the Unity dinner that had changed everything. The garden itself was a testament to the changes in Golden Oaks. Where once there had been perfectly manicured lawns, there now flourished a vibrant mix of vegetables, flowers, and herbs from various cultures. Residents of all ages and backgrounds worked side by side, tending to their plots and sharing gardening tips. Agatha paused to admire a patch of brilliant marigolds, tended by the Gupta family. Mrs. Gupta looked up with a warm smile. "Good morning, Lady Whitmore. The tomatoes you suggested are coming along beautifully." "I'm so glad to hear it," Agatha replied, feeling a surge of pride. "And please, I've told you." "Just Agatha." As she continued her walk, Agatha reflected on the whirlwind of the past year. The changes hadn't always been easy. There had been setbacks, heated arguments, and moments when she'd questioned whether it was all worth it. But for every step back, there had been 2 steps forward. The Golden Oaks Community Foundation had flourished under her leadership. They'd awarded their first round of scholarships, helping promising students from diverse backgrounds pursue higher education. Local businesses, once wary of change, were now thriving with an influx of new customers and ideas. Even Victoria, after her tentative olive branch at the Unity dinner, had slowly come around. While she still grumbled occasionally about the good old days, she had become an enthusiastic participant in the community's new cultural exchange program. Agatha's musings were interrupted by the sound of laughter. She looked up to see a group of children playing on the newly installed playground. The sight warmed her heart. A year ago, the only children in Golden Oaks had been visitors, grandchildren brought for weekend visits. Now, young families were moving in, bringing new energy and vitality to the community. As she approached the community center, Agatha saw Marcus Johnson emerging from his car. He waved when he spotted her, jogging over to meet her. "Good morning, Agatha," he said warmly. "Ready for the big meeting?" Agatha nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Today, they would be presenting their progress report to the City Council, showcasing Golden Oaks as a model for inclusive community development. "As ready as I'll ever be," she replied with a smile. "Though I must admit, I never thought I'd be nervous about public speaking at my age." Marcus chuckled. "You'll do great. Your passion for this community is infectious." As they entered the building, they were greeted by Elizabeth Chen, who was coordinating the final preparations for their presentation. "Everything's set," Elizabeth reported. "The council members are excited to see what we've accomplished. And," she added with a grin, "I hear there might be some press coverage." Agatha felt a flutter of pride. A year ago, the idea of Golden Oaks being in the news for positive reasons would have seemed impossible. Now, they were being hailed as pioneers in community integration. As they went over their notes one last time, Agatha's phone buzzed with a text message. It was from her granddaughter, Sophie. "Good luck today, Gran. We're all so proud of you. Dad says to tell you that Grandpa Robert would be too." Agatha felt tears prick her eyes. She had often wondered what Robert would think of all this. To know that her family believed he would approve meant more than she could express. Just before they were due to leave for City Hall, there was a commotion at the entrance. Agatha looked up to see Mr. Jameson leading a group of residents, young and old, from all backgrounds, into the room. "We heard about the presentation," Mr. Jameson announced, "and we wanted to come along to show our support. If you'll have us, that is." Agatha felt overwhelmed by the gesture. She looked at Marcus, who nodded with a smile. "We'd be honored," Marcus said. "After all, this is your story too. All of you have played a part in making Golden Oaks what it is today." As they all piled into cars and buses for the trip to City Hall, Agatha found herself seated next to Victoria. Her old friend patted her hand gently. "You know," Victoria said softly, "I owe you an apology. I was so afraid of change that I couldn't see the possibilities." "You were right, Agatha. This new Golden Oaks. Something special." Agatha squeezed Victoria's hand in return. "We all had to learn and grow," she replied. "That's what community is all about." As the bus pulled away from Golden Oaks, Agatha gazed out the window at the community she'd called home for so many years. The houses were the same, the streets unchanged, but the spirit of the place had transformed. It was livelier, more vibrant, filled with a sense of possibility. She thought back to that day at the gates, the moment of anger and prejudice that had set this all in motion. It seemed like a lifetime ago. The woman she had been then would hardly recognize the woman she was now. But that, Agatha realized, was the point. They had all changed. Herself, Marcus, the entire community. And they would keep changing, keep growing, keep striving to be better. As the bus rounded a corner, the Golden Oaks gates came into view one last time. Agatha smiled to herself. Those gates, once a barrier, had become a symbol of welcome, and Lady Agatha Whitmore, once a guardian of the old ways, had become a champion of the new. The future of Golden Oaks was bright indeed, and Agatha couldn't wait to see what came next.